Welcome to the channel Learn with Danish. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. Hi all, it's me Danish here with another video regarding the literary school of criticism. I had done already two videos, that is new criticism and Russian formalism, which is a part that is needed for the third BA English students of the University of Calicut. In this video, I would be focusing on yet another school of criticism, which is known as structuralism. Although it doesn't have a proper beginning and a proper ending as such, that like other school of criticism, we can associate the start of structuralism with the groundwork that was laid by the Swiss linguist, the early 20th century Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure. Actually, his students published his lecture notes as a work, a course on general linguistics, which was originally written in French, India, 1915, and it is a series of lecture notes from 1906 to 1911 that he had delivered. So it's a posthumous publication because he actually passes away from this world in the year 1913. So Ferdinand de Saussure laid the foundation for what is currently known as structuralism, which was the prevalent mode of criticism in the early 20th century. It is linked to different schools of criticism that emerged in both Europe as well as in America. So before getting into structuralism, I would like to mention here that the pattern of my lecture in this video and the video that would be following up would be slightly different from the pattern that I had used in my earlier two videos related to literary criticism, that is Russian formalism and new criticism. In this video, I would not be focusing on the four elemental pattern, but rather I would be focusing on the derivative pattern of the school of criticism as such. That is, how does the term structuralism come from? I would be discussing that first, then later on going into different critics and their contribution related to the school of thought that is structuralism. So as you can see over here, this is a picture of Ferdinand de Saussure, the Swiss linguist, and he laid the foundation stone for what is known as structuralism, and he focused on the structure of language as such. Later critics like Claude Lévi-Strauss, who was basically not a literary critic, he was an anthropologist. He used structural analysis that was laid down by Ferdinand de Saussure in his mythical narratives to identify the origin of human existence basically. And we also have Roland Barthes, who again developed the theories put forward by Claude Lévi-Strauss as well as Ferdinand de Saussure in his political implication to the narrative structure. So structuralism does not end in a particular age as such, but rather Roland Barthes plays a significant role in bridging what we later call as post-structuralism. We'll look into the details as we go on, as I have divided this portion, structuralism, into basically three videos. First part of the video would be concentrating what the concept of structure actually means, which is of course the main term that is associated with the school of criticism, that is structuralism. So let us look into the significance of a structure. What is called a structure as such? For that, I have arranged two images. Now we'll just look into the two images. The first image is that of a pile of bricks that is haphazardly laid down. You just see the bricks that is laid down there in that picture. Then you have a building structure. A building structure in the sense you have hollow spaces for windows, doors and stuff like that. You can see in that picture. So these two pictures actually show what is the difference between a structure and an aggregate. So just see the pile of bricks that is haphazardly laid down, you don't call that image as a structure as such. You don't call that pile as a structure. Rather, you can call one brick or the brick inside that pile to be a structure that is independent of its own. So the brick is a structure that is independent and exclusively of its own. Why is that so? Because it does not create a kind of meaning. That brick doesn't create a kind of meaning when it is inside that pile. Rather, it creates a meaning out of its own self, right? So it has existence independently. So we can call this pile of bricks as an aggregate rather than calling it as a structure. Right. When one brick is taken from it, it exists as a whole structure in itself, above and beyond the structure of the pile. So the pile of bricks cannot be called a structure, rather it can be called as an aggregate. So this brick here doesn't act as one of the components of the structure of pile, but can exist independently. It serves its meaning only then. So this is not called a structure. That is why we don't call a pile of bricks that is haphazardly laid down as not a structure, but basically we can call it as an aggregate. Right. Now coming to the second picture, why is that building called a structure? Right. So building is made up of different constituent parts. Right, you know that, and we have doors, we have windows, we have walls, etc., and we see that they are subservient to the entire structure. What do I mean by that statement? They are subservient to that entire structure means, just take for example, when we take a door or a window and place it in an open field, they cease to make sense, as they do make sense when they are inside a building. So when the door is inside a building, we can identify that it is a door. When the window is inside a building, then we can identify that it's a window. But when it is in the open space, it has no existence of its own. Right, so the door cannot be called a structure, or the window cannot be called a structure, but rather the building that is composed of these constituent parts can be called as a structure. They are subservient to the structure of the building, the component parts. So, and any of these component parts does not exist or cease to exist outside the structure of the building, and they assume meaning through the relationship of difference. Right, so there is the relationship of difference that signifies the meaning of the constituent parts inside a structure. Here the structure is a building, constituent parts are doors, windows, and all those stuffs. Right. So basically we have understood two basic features of a structure through this example. The first one is that in a structure, the constituent parts are always subservient to the whole. Right. So when you have a structure, you have constituent parts inside the structure, and it should be subservient to the whole. It should have a connection to the whole. And the second point is that each of the constituent parts gain its meaning through an oppositional or differential relation within the other parts inside the text or inside the structure. None of the constituent parts make sense outside the structure in the same manner as it makes sense inside the structure. That is the meaning-making thing that is involved within the structure. Here I have used an architectural metaphor to identify what or to signify what a structure is. Now it is similar to every aspect of life, whether it be architecture, whether it be music, whether it be language. Language is a place where we need to reach on to so that we get into literature. So the same principle applies to every sector. So for example, in a music, let's take the example of the musical structure. You're all familiar with raga. What is a raga? Raga can be considered as a musical structure that is integral to both Carnatic and North Indian music. There are different kinds of ragas as such. You don't have just one raga. And each raga is composed of specific musical note, specific sequence given to each raga. I would take an example of one raga that everybody is familiar with. That is the evening raga. You call it the evening raga or the Yaman raga. And we see that this raga has a sequence which goes like this: Ni, Re, Ga. Now when we take these utterances, these musical notes to be alone or independently, it is just a monotonous tone. It doesn't have that musicality element in it. But when it is arranged in a peculiar manner, Ni, Re, Ga, it has got some kind of musical note. So the musical sequence of the Yaman raga is Ni, Re, Ga. It has got some musicality in it. But you should also note that you cannot have some other component parts added to it. You cannot validate your justification by adding other component parts inside the structure. You cannot say that Yaman raga is Ni, Sa, Re, Ga. And that sequence is based on a rule that is inside the structure. So in Yaman raga, you don't start off with Ni, Sa, Re, Ga. Rather, you start off with a sequence that is Ni, Re, Ga. Here we come to the third aspect of structuralism. That is the rule of relationship within the constant parts inside a structure is purely based inside the structure and cannot be justified or invalidated outside the structure. So there is a certain set of rules that needs to be followed inside a structure, and the constituent parts are bound to rules, and each rule is unique to that particular structure. So in order to sum up what we have discussed altogether, what structure is all about, there are major 4 points. The first one is structure is made up of component parts that is subservient to the whole. The second point is the component parts do not have a meaningful existence outside the structure of the text as it has inside. That is related to the example of the window in an open field. It doesn't have an existence outside the structure of a building. Third point is meaning is conveyed not through any inherent quality within the constituent parts, but it is related to the oppositional relationship between the component part within the structure, not outside the structure. Within the structure, oppositional relationship. That is, the door is a door because it's not a window. The fourth and the final part that we have discussed in the raga system, the relationship between the parts are regulated by a set of rules which are arbitrary and hence is unique to every structure. So these are the major 4 characteristics that you can come across a structure. So with this characteristic, I think we would be able to follow what Ferdinand de Saussure theorizes in his work, General Course on Linguistics, which was posthumously published by his fellow students. So I hope that you have got a clear idea of what structure is all about. In the next video, we would be focusing on the Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure and a general introduction to Claude Lévi-Strauss too. Till then, it's me, Danish, signing off. Have a good day. Learn with Danish.